I'd like to talk about the Voyager spacecraft that are currently getting to the edge of the solar system. They were launched in 1977 and they took advantage of the alignment of the planets, which were all in a sort of sufficiently in a line for the spacecraft to fly by each planet and pick up energy and be thrown off to the next one, so that each time they went past a planet, they picked up speed, went a bit faster, and now they've gone past Pluto and they've revealed a few surprises I don't think were anticipated. They've gone to the edge of the solar system as we understand it, in terms of the solar shockwave that comes from the particles flux that come out of the sun, are meeting energies and particles that are coming from beyond the solar system. Now, I don't know, I'm not an expert on the physics of space physics, this kind of thing, so I don't know much about the solar wind, the shockwave, and all that. But there's a few things about this that I could make a comment on, because I don't say I know the answer to what's happening, but I might know why it's happening. Because, well, for one thing, the state of existence we are in, what we call the universe, is not what we think it is. In fact, nothing about our lives on Earth are what we think they are. Anyway, that's been, I've covered a lot of that in my other videos and articles. So, but what I want to explain now is that I think that we are living in a virtual reality simulation. This is not real. And the universe is not real. In fact, there is no universe. It doesn't exist, because the whole point of being a simulation is that it's a virtual reality, not an actual reality. The solar wind is obviously something that's been coming from the sun for as long as there's been a sun, I imagine. But the point about being a virtual reality is that nothing is what it seems to be. Now, a lot of scientists accept that we're in a simulation. It's not a new idea. I think that I was aware of this. This idea came to me when I was beginning my work in 1992. It was one of the first ideas I had. But what seems to me is that the academia, of the science academia in particular, mentions this fact of being a simulation, but they don't seem to draw the sort of conclusions from this idea that I've done. So I think I've got to come back to square one and say that if this is a simulation and not a reality, then what does that imply about the universe we see out there when we, go to the night sky? Not in England, you hardly see a star here. You're lucky where I live to see anything in the sky at night. There's too many lights in the area. But if you go to an area that's remote, I mean, you can see the galaxy out there, and billions, trillions of stars. It's enormous, and it's very attractive looking set of lights. Really, the stars. It's beautiful, really. Now, the thing is, though, what does that make all of that out there if it's a simulation? So that must be part of the simulation. Now, my suggestion is that what we're seeing is a backdrop. It's not real. There is no galaxy. There isn't no, we call this a universe, but it isn't. It's and we call it a space-time continuum. Well, I don't believe it is, that term is quite as appropriate, because I think that what seems a continuum, a continuous pattern of space and time, is really a set of centers where each star and each planet, each object is at the center of its own version of the universe. So that there's no actual backdrop of stars out there, but what there is the appearance of a backdrop of stars. So if you're a game designer, if you design computer games, then you can create all sorts of effects, background effects, scenery, people, objects, cars, and all that. But it's all created from mathematical equations that are translated in a computer into meaningful images. The simulation on a computer when you play a game is not real. But it's been mathematically programmed. And it doesn't mean that the program has to have a lot of information about what's out there, what the background is going to be. It can generate an algorithm that creates the background and gives it some appearance that is reasonable in the situation. It's a logical thing to see. So what does this mean for the Earth and everything else in the solar system? That in fact the solar system is in its own dimension of space and time. It's not in the same space and time as the greater universe that we once belonged to. So if you go back in time, history, you look at some of the spiritual texts and the myths and so on, there was an event in the past called the Fall. Now, the Fall was when it seems the Earth and humanity was pushed into a lower dimension that was more physical than before. In fact, we became totally physical. We lost access to higher dimensional energies that gave us a light body. Because when the game came down into this, it became a game when it came down into this dimension. And the game is the action game. Now, the action is the game itself is created to take every action that occurs in anything, but particularly in terms of the human beings, we when we get up and go to work or whatever it is we do in our day through the course of our day, we're constantly performing actions. Everything we do revolves around an action. Now, the higher dimensional version of the Earth before the fall was not um, part of necessarily part of the same game at all. I think the game was more or less created by when we came into the lower dimension, and the word action in Sanskrit is karma. But people have got the idea that karma is about retribution, so for everything that you do, but it's not. But let me have a look at this diagram here. This is the state of being we were in before the fall. We had a higher dimensional light body and a lower dimensional physical body. But we as entities were had a higher mind on this level, and the lower mind, the brain, if you like, mind, if you like, on the lower aspect. As we became more and more part of the physical dimension, we lost access to the higher consciousness that once we had, and we weren't really in time then. We were more in a timeless state, and we knew who and what we are or were then. we don't know what we are now, but we knew what we were then, and we've got we've forgotten how we got here, who we are, what we're doing, and where we go afterwards. So a lot of people have ideas, and people are getting in touch with this higher consciousness through things like meditation, spiritual work, and so on. It's all to do with the mind, really. The mind is the aspect of us that really controls and experiences this level of existence, and converts it into something that our infinite self, that's what we really are, we're infinite, and that infinite self has no self-awareness or consciousness of itself, but what it does have is a total and absolutely realistic consciousness of this existence. This whole pattern of existence is really happening in a state of mind. And the physicality that seems so real is a mathematical model that's quite consistent, and the properties that the physics gives us are something that we've created in consciousness through the higher mind up here. So that's why we're here, in order to experience the finite, not as a reality. There is nothing finite exists. There is only infinity. Everything finite comes from the simulation, which is based on the concept of number. So this picture, this diagram, is this represents number, this circle and what's inside it. This is number. And I think of it as a trinity, the trinity, if you like. And what it consists of is infinity, 0 and 1. That's the trinity. In a binary universe, it's a quantum digital state created from binary information, which consists of noughts and ones and infinity. Now, at some point, the simulation becomes so real that we believe we're actually in it, that this is real, that we're real, and that we're here. Now, we are not separate. I mean, we seem to be separate bodies, you know. I mean, I can get up and walk around. I'm not glued to the chair. I'm not part of the furniture. I'm not part of the room. And I've got space around me filled with air. So it seems like I'm separate because I've got skin, you see, but not really, because in terms of the continuum, there are no breaks. There's no actual separation between me or you and the universe outside you, space-time pattern outside you. Your pattern is a part of that. So, I mean, we could, give it, quote, an example. If you put half a dozen people in front of a camera and video or film them, you can see them all on a screen. And it looks, so if it's 6 people you're filming with the camera and the 6 people on the screen, it looks like there are 6 people there, but there aren't. There's only one screen with 6 images on it, but they're not separate. It's just a pattern of pixels, noughts and ones, really, which is, of course, here we are, the noughts and ones. This is it. This is what gives rise to existence. Now, after the fall, we went from that yin-yang diagram to this. We are in the shadow side. We've got centers of light within us that are the consciousness of from the great, the oneness that's beyond everything, or encompasses everything in an imaginary sense. And so we're in this, having a physical existence, but what was our real self? Because if you look at this, you've got, this is the wavy line, this is the vibration that takes place in the numbers. So every number has a value, like the number 1 has the value 1, and it has a quality or a subjective meaning, which in the case of 1 is oneness, in the case of 2 is two-ness, and so on. All this existence is created within this circle, if you like, as a quantum digital construction. Beyond it, though, is what I call the potential infinite, the source. This is the unknowable, and it's got all possibilities within it. So our job is to create a mathematical experience that is made up of binary information that creates this illusion. So what's this got to do with Voyager? Oh, here we are. With the fall, where we were in a universe that had energy bodies as well as physical bodies. So the physical body was a subset of an energy body, a light being, something much greater than we are here. And but that again is a bit of a, what's the word? It's a complicated thing, but the fact that we seem to be in a more primitive state is in fact the opposite of what it seems, because by coming into this totally physical state, we are acquiring experiences that we could not have acquired on the higher dimension, simply because we knew everything that was happening. We knew what was going on. We couldn't be fooled by the events. But being that we're on the quantum digital level, the dimension of binary information, a mathematical value, this is the arena of mathematical value. But what it does is it creates an experience in the light that seems so real. So we are actually outside this circle. We're in the potential infinite, but we use the actual infinite as a mechanism to create a quantum digital universe, not using noughts and ones. And the ones, although I say one, is the concept is number, but there's only one number, but it can have infinite possible values and infinite possible meanings. So, it's not difficult to see that existence can be manufactured when you've got infinite possible meanings. It all gets put together mathematically on the value level and converted into an experience on the infinite level. And we experience it because we are totally infinite. We don't exist because, infinity, existence isn't really, what we call existence is based on tangible things, shape, size, weight, things you can touch, feel, see, hear, and so on. There is nothing like that in infinity. There's no distinguishing features whatsoever. But it does seem that although the physical universe creates, we create this existence, we experience it through our senses, and it's our senses that provide the input that generates the experience for the infinite to actually have, to undergo. Now, when we were pushed down, it was an experiment because we were on this higher level. We were pushed into a lower level. Now, something happened, and the Earth that was on multiple dimensions became fractured, fragmented, so that there was a higher Earth and a lower Earth. And the higher Earth would be seemingly really infinite. And most of the existing planets on other star systems and other galaxies, wherever, that are inhabited are not necessarily in this universe, but they've all got their own version of this universe, because this is what happens. Each world has its own version of the universe. There is no whole universe. There's just a concept of stars, galaxies, and all the rest of it. It's just a mathematical model. But when it's projected by consciousness out there, it appears to be what we see, but it isn't really there. But when we were pushed down into this lower dimension, the Earth was the focus of the process, because we had beings like the Anunnaki. They were from the higher dimension, and some of them came from other star systems. Now, whether they were originally here, they were here before us, I think, and they created us. They had the ability to create, as they were called gods, because they could create. They called themselves gods because they impressed the people that they herded around human beings. So they generated humanity. They created us and manipulated our DNA. And I think we were partly avatar bodies that could be used for higher dimensional beings to manifest on the Earth without actually having to reduce their consciousness to this low level. They could retain their higher consciousness, but still have a body and a brain and all the rest of it to manufacture the lower version. Now, what that means is that because it's an experiment and it was sort of a novel thing. You know, it hadn't been done before. They'd always known that there was a lower dimension, and it was generally known as the underworld. And it was known to religions, Egyptian religion, Chinese, I think. Anyway, various South Americans, a lot of cultures had this idea of an underworld. But it wasn't until the Earth was pushed into it and we came into this dimension. And then so what happened is that on this dimension, there are versions of the planets in the solar system on our level that are not the same as they are on the higher level. So they could be quite happily inhabited on the higher level, but you come onto the lower level and you may not, they may not be inhabited, or they might create the illusion of being uninhabited. Who knows? But anyway, it's the whole thing is it means that the entire solar system has descended into this dimension, and it's surrounded. Well, it's not surrounded, actually. That's the whole point. It's a virtual reality simulation on a lower dimension, and the reason that the planets and the stars and the sun and all that, they've got their higher dimensional counterparts and they've got their lower dimensional counterparts, but the arrangement is the same, but the actual manifestation is different. And the reason that's the reason why we have the expression that came into being of as above, so below, because originally, say, the higher Earth and the lower Earth would have been one Earth, and they split. So one went up, one went down. Say up and down, it's not really meaningful, but it's lower frequencies of expression, consciousness based on numerical values. So we're down here, we're on the lower dimension, and because it's a simulation, there is nothing beyond the solar system. There is a backdrop of stars, and they are, it's a simulation. Now, what this means is that if you go from here, from the Earth, you go through the solar system, say, you've got a spacecraft, you go to the edge, and you want to go beyond, well, I mean, for a start, I think the solar system is many times larger than we think it is. So it's an influence. But the point is that what's beyond it is where we are, it's on here. What it is really, so if this is the infinite state that we inhabit here, this is what I call here we are. This is an actual infinity. Beyond here is potential infinity. The difference being that this is a kind of a fixed pattern that's taken some form of existence, but what's outside is totally unknowable to us. We can't know what the outside potential infinite state is. It's the source. It's not what we can't really. It doesn't have physics. It's not. It doesn't have any sort of finite physics attached to it. But all experience, even physical experience, is actually subjective in nature. It's infinite. So the experience of everything, including ourselves, is infinite. It's a reality only in consciousness. So when the spacecraft goes beyond the solar system, say, and it keeps going beyond, there's nothing there. We've reached the edge of the simulation. It only needs to be as big as it needs to be. So what happens is, if objects, say, go from within, sure, there's particles, there's flux of particles going on. There's all stuff going out there, but because of the needs of consciousness, it doesn't have to have. Things don't have to exist simply because they are exist as thoughts. Doesn't mean to say they have to have any sort of form. And all the possibilities, we have multiple lives. With reincarnation and parallel universes and all the rest of it. As an entity, we are a version of the universe, and the universe we inhabit is our own version. It's what we've made for ourselves, because there is no separation between anything. So, what makes you a person, an entity, an individual consciousness in the universe, is that you are the whole universe. And what you use to create your version of it is a focal point, a point of perspective, somewhere you can look out from. And where you're looking out, that's the universe you've created. So it's a bit like this problem with the solar system. There doesn't need to be anything beyond it, but if things start going out there, we're conscious. Let's put it like this: if active consciousness goes out into beyond in the solar system, and if it wherever it went, consciousness, the universal consciousness, the program would have to create for it a reality to go with it. So if you go off in your spacecraft to another star, there's really nothing there. You would create space, the version of the universe as you go. You would create the space around you and whatever's there. And eventually, if you go to another star, you might be part of creating whatever it is you find yourself at. You see, consciousness, like it's been said that do objects of nature on the earth exist if there's nobody there to see them? Do they only come into being if an observer looks at them? Well, I don't think that applies on the earth, because all the plants, animals and everything here is consciousness itself, having its own existence. So, but it's one of its primary purposes, of course, is to give an environment in which self-conscious being can inhabit and manifest in form. That's the universe that we create. So anyway, there you are. Voyager is entering a mysterious state. It's going beyond the solar system. Let's say this black circle represent this. This is the space. This is the solar system. Say this is the border of the solar system, which is darn sight bigger than the one we're actually in or can see. But if you go beyond it, ultimately, you're into the light, really. And whatever you're into is infinite stuff, which is a bit beyond our understanding. The infinite universe has got rules, regulations, and processes. Not in the same sense as material versions have, but there is a sort of a logic and a rationality to be the infinite and how it works. So Voyager is going to have to create its own environment if it keeps going, ultimately. Otherwise, it will enter a state of non-existence. So I'm not entirely sure which would happen, whether it would create a state of existence in which to travel beyond and not out. Will it ultimately carry it all the way to another star system? Because distances are so vast, the universe could end before it got anywhere to the, very far at all. I don't know. But it's not, if there's no consciousness to observe it, and it's not actually playing a key role in the process of, see, the universe is really a living being, an aspect of the whole consciousness. So it's an experience, and it serves the purpose for individual entities to come into, to experience themselves and the environment, which really is all one anyway. We're not separate from it. We're all part of it. It's our universe, your personal universe. So we put our versions of ourselves in the other people's universes. So if you're talking to a person, you're talking to a representation of that person that's manifested in your universe from theirs. So they think they're with you and you think you're with them, but you're not. So what's going on, of course, is that this is entirely your universe. Everything, the stars, the solar system, the planets, the matter, everything, the shape, size, energies, it's all your universe. But it doesn't mean to say it's simply because every version of the universe has got a center, and the center of that is some entity of existence. So when every time an object comes into existence, a baby's conceived, grows, it creates a new universe. It has its actual universe, all of its own, and all of this goes on. So anyway, all of this is the point I'm trying to put over, probably not very successfully, but it's a bit complicated. But it's this Voyager could become an experiment if science was open to these ideas, because it is. I mean, at the moment, what I'm talking about, it would be total heresy. But as I haven't got any reputation to lose, it doesn't matter, does it? It's going to become something that we don't expect. This whole situation has arisen to illustrate something that at the moment, I don't know what. I've only just given a kind of flavour of the kind of background situation that could lead to a situation like this, and why and how. But I can't explain it. I don't, that's beyond my ability to explain. But I just hope it offers some clue to an opportunity to learn about something that we don't know about, but I believe is a genuine experience, a genuine thing, idea. It's reality. Non-reality is the reality. So anyway, if that makes any sense at all, I'm very, very pleased. Thank you.